Part 2. The Hunter and the Hunted. The world thought Lamont Marino would rot in a cell. For a year, it almost seemed true. He kept his head down, played the part of a man broken by justice. Guards grew careless. Prisoners forgot he was dangerous. His uncle was dead. His family empire crumbled. Lamont bided his time like a wolf caged with sheep, silent, calculating, waiting for the right door to swing open. And one winter night, it did. A riot over smuggled pills erupted on the far block. Sirens howled, boots thundered, and Lamont slipped through a corridor the fire alarms had emptied. He moved with precision, shoving aside bodies without killing them. A man who could run an empire could walk out of a prison. By dawn, the news anchors clutched papers with pale knuckles. Marino air escapes during prison riot. But Zola didn't need the news. She felt him in her bones before she saw a headline. For weeks, she watched her own shadow more closely. She varied her walking routes, switched burner phones twice, memorized license plates parked too long on her street. She pretended she wasn't waiting, but she was. He came for her on a Tuesday, the quiet kind of day where children colored spaceships in the community center, and she drafted a novel with an assassin who fell in love with the very man she was hired to kill. She was halfway up the stairwell of her apartment building when the lights went out. A hand clamped over her mouth. A voice she dreamed and cursed whispered against her ear. "Did you think I'd let you end me that easily, little writer?" She didn't fight. Not yet. She let him lift her, bind her wrists, carry her into the dark van that smelled like leather and memory. The first thing Zola noticed was the hum of the tires. Not the ropes around her wrists, not the black hood pressed against her cheek, not the ache blooming in her shoulder from where Lamont had carried her like stolen property. The tires were too smooth, the suspension too soft. This was no back alley van. This was money, old money, still burning under the ashes of his fallen empire. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice muffled by fabric. Lamont's reply came low from the driver's seat. "Home." She let out a sharp laugh. "You don't have a home. You lost that when I put your family in the ground." The hood came off so suddenly it made her blink. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror, his dark eyes catching hers. "Then I'll borrow one until I decide what to do with you." The safe house looked nothing like a criminal's den. The walls were white, the furniture leather, the air faintly perfumed with cedar. It could have belonged to a banker or a professor or anyone but a man who had once signed off on chains. That was Lamont's trick, to hide the rot in a polished shell. He tied her to a chair in the kitchen. Not roughly, no bruises, no split wrists, but firmly, with a sailor's knots that mocked her precision. He set a glass of water in front of her, condensation dripping down its side. "You're going to kill me, aren't you?" she asked. Lamont leaned against the counter, sleeves rolled to his elbows. His chest still bore the faint stiffness of an old wound, her wound. "I should," he said. His voice was calm, but the vein at his temple beat like a drum. "You destroyed my family, put me in a cell, shot me in the heart." Not hard enough, apparently. Something dangerous flickered across his face. But instead of striking her, he reached for a chair and sat across from her, too close, his knees nearly brushing hers. "I've killed men for less," he admitted. His tone was not boastful. It was heavy, like gravel dragged in a shovel. "But I didn't come out of prison just to end you. Then why?" His lips curved, not into a smile, but into something sharper. "Because you're the only thing I haven't decided about." Days passed in the rhythm of a storm. Lamont untied her wrists during meals, but he never let her out of his sight. He cooked, badly but with a strange earnestness, as if feeding her could drown out the urge to break her. He read her novels aloud, sometimes mocking, sometimes reverent, sometimes quiet in a way that made her pulse betray her. "You write women braver than you are," he said once, closing the book with a snap. "But you're only brave when you have a gun." "Maybe I write them to remind myself who I'm supposed to be," she shot back. His laugh was bitter. "Or who you'll never let yourself be." At night when the house went still, she studied him. The man moved like a predator, but his eyes betrayed a soul gnawed at by ghosts. She saw the sleeplessness, the twitch in his jaw, the way his hand sometimes hovered over his chest where the bullet had nearly ended him, and he studied her right back. "You haunt me," he said one evening, voice low, the lamplight painting his face in gold and shadow. "Even in prison. Especially in prison. Do you know what that does to a man? Zola lifted her chin. Makes him weak. His chair scraped against the floor as he rose. He leaned over her, hands gripping the arms of her chair, his breath warm against her ear. No, he whispered. It makes him dangerous. Her pulse spiked, but her gaze didn't falter. Then do it. Kill me. Silence stretched between them, taut as wire. His lips hovered inches from hers, trembling with words unsaid. Then, with a growl, he pulled back and slammed a fist against the wall instead. The plaster cracked. Zola didn't flinch. The tension fractured in strange ways. Sometimes they argued like enemies. Sometimes they circled like predators. Sometimes they touched, almost tender, and pulled away as if the contact burned. One night he kissed her, hungry, bruising, desperate. She kissed him back, teeth clashing, every ounce of anger pressed into that single moment. When he tore himself away, chest heaving, his eyes were wild. I don't love you, he said hoarsely. Good, Zola whispered, her wrists raw against the rope. Because I don't love you either. Both lies sat heavy between them. On the fourth night, he made the mistake of trust. He untied her wrists, poured her wine, and spoke like a man rehearsing a confession. I hated it, the trafficking, the chains, the eyes that never stopped begging. But I stayed. For family, for blood. I told myself it was loyalty. It was cowardice. Zola lifted the glass, tilting it in the light. I don't care about your confessions, Lamont. You can't unmake chains with words. His hand brushed hers across the table. For a moment, his thumb lingered against her skin. His voice softened. But maybe I can unmake them with you. Her heart betrayed her with a stutter. Her breath caught. She wanted to believe him, wanted to see a man who could be redeemed. But she remembered Malik's hollow eyes. She remembered every name written in ledgers inked with blood. So when Lamont leaned closer, when his lips brushed hers again, Zola's hand moved faster. The pistol was already in her palm, lifted from his own drawer earlier that day. She pressed the muzzle to his chest. His eyes widened, not with fear but with betrayal. The shot echoed like thunder. Lamont staggered, blood blooming through his shirt. He collapsed against the chair, eyes burning into hers even as his breath came ragged. You, he gasped, his voice a broken laugh. You never change. Zola stood, her body trembling, the gun still steady in her hand. No, she said, her voice cold, final. I don't. She walked out into the night, leaving him bleeding in the silence he had created.